The photograph sits in my trembling hands, edges softened by years of touch, the glossy paper reflecting the dim light of my childhood bedroom. Summer heat presses through the cracked windows like a physical force, suffocating, relentless, carrying with it the weight of everything I've been running from. In the photo, 3 children laugh by the river, me between 2 boys, water droplets caught midair like suspended diamonds, our faces split wide with a kind of joy that only exists before the world shows you what it's really made of. I trace my finger over their faces. Luca on my left, dark eyes soft even then, his hand barely touching my shoulder like I might disappear if he held on too tight. Matteo on my right, arms slung around my neck with careless confidence, his smile sharp enough to cut. We look invincible. We look like we'd last forever. That was before the gunshots. Before the night that turned boys into ghosts and innocence into ash. I set the photo down on the dresser, my hands shaking harder now. 12 years since I left this town. 12 years since I built a life in the city that had nothing to do with rivers or secrets or the sound of my mother screaming. 12 years of pretending I could forget. Then the letter came. Come home. We need to talk.
Al.
3 weeks ago, I would have burned it. But the second letter changed everything. It was heavier, the paper expensive, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside, a single newspaper clipping. A photo of 2 men in tailored suits standing outside a downtown high-rise, their faces partially obscured but unmistakable to anyone who'd known them as boys. The headline read, Romano and Vitali families tighten grip on city's underground, Mafia war looms. Luca Romano. Matteo Vitali. My childhood best friends weren't just alive. They were kings. And I was apparently the only person in the world who didn't know. The humiliation burned hotter than the summer air. While I'd been working doubles as a nurse, scraping by in a shoebox apartment, drowning in student loans, they'd been building empires. Criminal empires. The boys who used to steal candy bars from the corner store now controlled entire territories. The boys who cried with me at my father's funeral now had blood on their hands, metaphorically, at minimum. Probably literally. Worse than the shock was the realization creeping up my spine like ice water. They'd hidden it from me. For years. Luca's occasional calls, always vague, always brief. Matteo's complete silence. They'd erase me from their lives without explanation, and now suddenly I was supposed to come running because Luca sent a goddamn note? You don't understand. You need to come home before it's too late. Please, Bella. Trust me one more time.
Al.
Bella. He hadn't called me that since we were 17. I shouldn't have come. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to burn both letters, block the number, disappear back into my anonymous city life. But standing here now, in the bedroom where I used to dream about the future with 2 boys who swore we'd never be apart, I know the truth. I never really left. And now, whatever they've become, whatever darkness they've fallen into, they've dragged me back into it. Because 3 hours ago, a black SUV pulled up outside my childhood home. 2 men in suits stepped out, their eyes scanning the street with professional paranoia. One of them walked to my front door and knocked. 3 sharp raps, military precise. When I opened it, my heart stopped. Luca stood there, older, harder, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark eyes held the same softness I remembered, buried now beneath layers of violence and power. But it was still there. Still him. Ella, he said, my name rough in his throat like he'd been holding it in for years. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Tell me what? My voice cracked. That you're a criminal? That you and Matteo are what? Rival mob bosses now. That everything we were was a lie. It was never a lie. He stepped closer, and I saw it then. The exhaustion, the fear beneath the authority. But it's not safe anymore. Matteo knows you're back. And he's not the boy you remember. Neither are you. Something flickered across his face.
Pain. Guilt.
No, he said quietly. I'm not. But I'm still the one who's going to keep you alive. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his jaw tightened. When he looked back at me, his eyes had gone cold, the softness locked away behind the Mafia king. We need to leave.
Now. What?
Why? Because Matteo just sent you a gift. He pulled up a photo on his phone and turned it toward me. My stomach dropped. It was a single red rose, lying on the hood of my rental car outside. Attached to it, a handwritten note in Matteo's distinctive scrawl. Welcome home, little bird. Let's catch up. You, me, and our dear Luca. Just like old times.
The
paper beneath the rose was stained dark red. Not ink.
Blood.
To understand how we got here, how 3 kids by a river became a triangle of loyalty, obsession, and betrayal, you need to go back. Back to the summer everything changed. Back to the night the innocence died. The summer I turned 16, the river ran clear enough to see straight through to the rocks below. We'd spent every June afternoon there since we were kids, me, Luca, and Matteo, where the water curved around the old willow tree and the world felt like it belonged only to us. That particular afternoon, the sun hung low and golden, turning the surface into liquid amber. Matteo was showing off again, balancing on the slippery stones like a tightrope walker, arms spread wide, that cocky grin splitting his face. Gonna fall on your ass, Vitali. I called from the shore, wringing river water from my hair. Ella Moretti doubts me? Never. He spun dramatically, wobbled, then caught himself with infuriating ease.
See?
King of the river. Luca sat beside me on the warm rocks, close enough that our shoulders touched. He'd been quiet all afternoon, quieter than usual, which for Luca meant practically invisible. While Matteo commanded attention like breathing, Luca existed in the margins, watching everything with those dark, careful eyes. You're gonna encourage him into a concussion one day, he murmured, but there was affection in it. There was always affection when Luca looked at either of us, soft and unguarded in a way he never was with anyone else. He doesn't need encouragement. He was born showing off. I bumped my shoulder against his. You okay? You've been weird all day. Something flickered across his face, there and gone before I could name it. Just thinking. About how it won't always be like this. His gaze drifted to where Matteo was now attempting to skip stones, each throw punctuated by elaborate commentary. Everything's changing. Our families, the business stuff our dads talk about. Matteo's dad wants him to start learning the real work after graduation. I'd heard the whispers, of course. Everyone in our neighborhood knew the Romano and Vitali families weren't exactly in importing and exporting the way they claimed. Luca's father controlled the docks. Matteo's father ran half the construction contracts in the city. There were rumors of territory disputes, of money changing hands in back rooms, of the kind of power that didn't show up on tax returns. But that was adult business. Boring, complicated, nothing to do with us. So what? I said, trying to lighten the mood. Matteo in a suit, pretending to care about contracts? That'll last a week before he goes insane. Luca didn't smile. It's not pretend, Ella. It's who we're supposed to become. Before I could respond, Matteo landed in the water with a spectacular splash, soaking both of us. He surfaced laughing, slicking his dark hair back, eyes bright with mischief. Luca, stop being so serious. We're 16, not 40. Come in. The water's perfect. It's freezing, Luca said, but he was smiling now. That rare, real smile he saved just for us.
Exactly.
Builds character. Matteo waded closer, river water streaming down his shoulders. Besides, we made a pact, remember? The 3 of us. Always. That was when we were 12, I pointed out. Pacts don't have expiration dates, Ella. Matteo's voice dropped, suddenly serious despite his grin. We're family. Not the family we were born into, the one we chose. Nothing changes that. And in that moment, with the summer sun painting everything gold and the sound of the river washing away every worry, I believed him. The cracks started showing a week later. Matteo's father came home from a business dinner with a split lip and hands that shook when he reached for his whiskey. Matteo wouldn't talk about it, but I saw the way his jaw tightened, the way his usual bright energy dimmed to something harder, sharper. Luca's mother started crying at odd hours. I'd hear her through the thin walls when I visited, soft, muffled sobs that Luca pretended not to notice. His father's voice would follow, low and harsh, words I couldn't make out but felt in the tension that radiated through the house. "They're fighting about territory," Matteo admitted one night when we'd snuck onto the roof of his apartment building, legs dangling over the edge. The city stretched below us, lights flickering like a constellation trapped on Earth. My dad and Luca's dad. Something about who controls the port contracts. "It's getting bad." "How bad?" I asked. Matteo looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that looked like fear. "Bad enough that my father said the Romano family is making moves. That we need to be ready." "Ready for what?" He didn't answer. Just lit a cigarette with hands that weren't quite steady, even though he always pretended to be fearless. Luca found us there an hour later. He didn't sit, just stood at the roof's edge, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "My dad knows you're up here," he said quietly. "He wants to talk to you, Matteo. Both our fathers do. Tomorrow night." "About the contracts?" "About ending this before it gets worse." The relief on Matteo's face was palpable. Finally, maybe they'll actually listen to reason for once. But Luca's expression remained dark, unreadable. "Maybe." I reached for his hand without thinking, the way I'd done 1,000 times before. His fingers closed around mine, gentle, careful, like I was something breakable. "It'll be okay," I whispered. "They'll work it out. They're family too, right? Our dads grew up together." "Yeah," Luca said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Family." The meeting was set for the abandoned warehouse near the docks. Neutral territory, they called it. A place where both families could talk without pride or posturing getting in the way. I wasn't supposed to be there. None of us were. But Matteo convinced me to come, and where Matteo went, Luca followed, and where Luca went, I followed because that's what we did. We were a unit. Unbreakable. We hid in the shadows near the warehouse's south entrance, close enough to hear voices, far enough to stay invisible. I remember thinking how ordinary it all seemed. Our fathers in their nice suits, sitting across a worn table, cigarette smoke curling toward the broken skylights. Reasonable men having a reasonable conversation. I remember Matteo's hand finding mine in the dark. I remember Luca's breathing. Too fast, too shallow. I remember the exact moment everything shifted, when Matteo's father stood, when his voice rose, when Luca's father's hand moved to his jacket. Then the gunshot. Sharp. Final. Echoing off concrete and steel. More voices. Shouting. Running footsteps. Another shot, then another, the sounds blurring together into a symphony of violence that would replay in my nightmares for years. Luca pulled me down, his body covering mine, his hand pressed over my mouth to keep me from screaming. Matteo was frozen, staring at the warehouse entrance, his face white in the moonlight. The smell of gunpowder. The taste of copper. The sound of my own heartbeat drowning out everything else. When the silence finally came, it was worse than the noise. When we found the courage to look, 2 bodies lay motionless in the warehouse. Blood pooling dark against concrete. Our fathers, the men who'd shaped our entire world, gone in the space between heartbeats. That night, childhood died. And in its place, something darker began to grow. If this story already has your heart tightening, hit follow before we go deeper. The funerals happened on the same gray Tuesday, but in different cemeteries. Even in death, the families couldn't stand on the same ground. The Romanos buried their patriarch in the old Catholic cemetery on the hill, where generations of their bloodline rested beneath marble angels. The Vitalis chose the newer memorial garden across town, all clean lines and modern grief. I went to both. Luca stood at his father's grave like a statue carved from ice, 17 years old in a suit too expensive for someone who'd just lost everything. His mother clung to his arm, her black veil trembling with each sob, but Luca's face remained perfectly blank. When I tried to reach for his hand, he pulled away, not cruelly, but deliberately, like he'd already decided to close himself off from anything soft. Matteo was worse. He didn't cry at his father's funeral.
Didn't speak.
Just stared at the casket with eyes so cold I barely recognized him. When his mother collapsed against him, he held her mechanically, patting her back like he'd read about comfort in a textbook but never actually felt it. After the service, he found me by the garden gates. His tie was loosened, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "They're saying it was a turf war gone wrong," he said flatly. "That our fathers died because they couldn't agree on who controlled what streets, what ports, what money." Matteo. They died over nothing, Ella. Over pride and territory and fucking business. His voice cracked on the last word, the first real emotion I'd seen from him all day. "And you know what the worst part is?" I shook my head, afraid of what he'd say. "Now it's ours. All of it. The territory, the business, the war they started." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "We're 17, and we just inherited hell." The transformation didn't happen overnight. It was slower, more insidious, like watching someone drown in inches. In the weeks after the funerals, Luca threw himself into understanding his father's empire. He spent hours in the home office, poring over ledgers and contracts, teaching himself the language of money and power. His mother tried to shield him, insisted he finish school first, but Luca was relentless. "Someone has to keep this family from falling apart," he told me one night when I found him still awake at 2 a.m., papers spread across the desk. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Dad's associates are circling like sharks. They think I'm weak because I'm young. I have to prove them wrong." "You don't have to do this," I whispered, perching on the edge of the desk. "You could walk away. We both could. Leave this life behind." For a moment, something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek with the same gentle touch I remembered from the river. "And go where, Bella? This is all I have left of him. If I walk away, he died for nothing." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that his father would have wanted better for him than this, but I wasn't sure that was true. And in the hollow space that doubt created, I made my choice. "Then I'm staying too." "Ella, no." "Yes." I caught his hand, held it against my face. "You said we're family. That doesn't change because things got hard. Where you go, I go. Always." The gratitude in his eyes broke my heart. Matteo's descent was faster, sharper, like a blade unsheathed. He started skipping school first, then stopped going entirely. I'd find him at the warehouse where our fathers died, standing in the exact spot where blood had pooled, smoking cigarette after cigarette until his fingers trembled. "They underestimated them," he said once, his voice distant. "The other families thought the Romanos and Vitales were too busy fighting each other to be dangerous. That's why they made their move. That's why our fathers are dead." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He turned to me, and his eyes held something feral. "I've been asking questions. Learning things. Dad kept records, Ella. Detailed records of who owed what, who threatened what, who betrayed what. And I'm going to make every single one of them pay." The violence in his voice terrified me. "Matteo, revenge won't bring him back."
"No."
"But power will make sure no one ever does this to us again." He started attending meetings his father's old associates held, the kind of meetings where men in expensive suits discussed things that would never appear in any ledger. At first, they dismissed him. Then they started listening. Matteo had inherited his father's charisma, but he'd added something darker to it: hunger. When he smiled now, it looked like teeth. For almost a year, we held together through sheer will. 3 kids playing at being adults, trying to honor dead fathers while keeping their empires from crumbling. I became the bridge between them, translating Luca's careful strategy to Matteo's aggressive instincts, mediating when their approaches clashed, pretending I couldn't see the fracture lines forming. Luca built his power through respect. He honored old agreements, proved himself reliable, slowly earned the loyalty of men who dismissed him as a boy. He was disciplined, controlled, every move calculated 3 steps ahead. People started calling him the diplomat, and he wore the title like armor. Matteo built his power through fear. He made examples of those who disrespected him, expanded territory aggressively, took risks that made even hardened criminals nervous. He was unpredictable, dangerous, electric with barely contained violence. People called him the Viper, and he smiled like it was a compliment. And me? I tried to keep them human. I'd show up at Luca's door at midnight with takeout, forcing him to eat something besides ambition. I'd drag Matteo to the roof when his darkness got too heavy, reminding him of who he used to be beneath the cruelty. I'd sit between them at family dinners, yes, we still had those, pretending normalcy existed, and make them laugh like we were still just kids by the river. But the river was miles away now, and we were drowning in blood money. The night it fell apart started ordinary. We were 19, almost adults by law, already ancient in the ways that mattered. Luca had called a meeting. Rare. Since they'd been avoiding formal gatherings, the tension between their families still raw. But there was talk of a new opportunity, a port contract that could benefit both sides. Like old times, Matteo had said when he agreed to come. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. The meeting was held in neutral territory, a private room in a restaurant both families frequented. I sat between them, as always, their shared buffer against conflict. Luca presented his proposal. A partnership, equal split on the contract, proof that the Romano and Vitali families could work together without destroying each other. Matteo listened in silence. Then he stood.
No.
The single word fell like a stone into still water. Luca's jaw tightened. Matteo. No, he repeated louder now. I'm done pretending we're equals. Done pretending this partnership isn't weighing me down. He turned to Luca, and the venom in his voice made me flinch. Your father controlled the docks. Your legacy. But my father? He built from nothing. And I won't watch his empire become second to yours. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Matteo's laugh was harsh. You want cooperation.
Unity. Peace.
You sound just like them, Luca. Just like our fathers before someone put bullets in their heads. He leaned forward, palms flat on the table. I'm not interested in peace. I'm interested in power. And I'm taking what's mine. Matteo, please. I reached for him, but he jerked away. Don't. The look he gave me was almost pitying. You still think we can go back? That if we try hard enough, we'll be those kids by the river again. But we can't, Ella. Those kids are dead. We buried them with our fathers. So what? Luca's voice was quiet, dangerous. You're just going to walk away? From us? From everything we've built? I'm not walking away. Matteo straightened his jacket, suddenly every inch the Mafia prince he'd become. I'm choosing ambition over sentiment. I'm choosing power over pretend brotherhood. And I'm taking my family's territory, all of it, whether you like it or not. He left without looking back. Luca's hand found mine under the table, squeezing so hard it hurt. But he didn't move, didn't chase. Just sat there with his careful mask cracking, revealing the devastation beneath. We lost him, I whispered.
No.
Luca's voice was hollow. He lost himself. Matteo disappeared that night. His phone went straight to voicemail. His apartment sat empty. His mother hadn't seen him. For 3 days, I searched every place we'd ever gone together, terrified I'd find him hurt or worse. When he finally resurfaced, it was on the news. Vitali family announces major territory expansion. Rival Romano family surprised by aggressive moves. The photo showed Matteo in a sharp suit, standing outside a newly acquired property, his expression cold and victorious. He looked like a stranger. He looked like a king. Luca watched the broadcast in silence, his face unreadable. He chose this, he finally said. He chose power over us. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say we could fix this, bring him back, make him remember who he used to be. But looking at Matteo's eyes in that photo, hard, hungry, empty of everything that once made him human, I knew the truth. The boy I loved was gone, and the man who remained would destroy us all. 5 years is enough time to build a new life. Or, at least, that's what I told myself every morning when I woke up in my shoebox apartment 300 miles from home. The nursing program had been my escape route. A clean break from the blood and violence, from boys who became monsters, from a city that knew my name and all the darkness attached to it. I'd packed one suitcase, left a note for Luca that simply said, "I can't watch you both destroy each other," and disappeared into the kind of anonymous urban sprawl where nobody asks about your past. My studio apartment faced a brick wall. The heater rattled. My neighbors fought at 2 a.m. with alarming regularity. I worked double shifts at the hospital, came home to frozen dinners, and pretended the loneliness was freedom. Some days, I almost believed it. The trauma lived in small details I couldn't control. I couldn't hear gunshots, even on TV, without my hands shaking. Couldn't see men in expensive suits without cataloging exits. I'd adopted a stray cat I named River, because some part of me needed something soft and alive that depended on me, that couldn't betray me or choose power over love. I didn't date, didn't make close friends, kept every relationship at arm's length, because getting close meant questions, and questions meant lies, and lies meant remembering everything I'd come here to forget. At night, I'd dream about the three of us by the water. Always the same dream. Luca's hand in mine, Mateo's laugh echoing off the trees, summer sun turning everything golden. Then the gunshots would start, and I'd wake gasping, River meowing anxiously from his perch on my chest. Some wounds don't heal. They just learn to live quiet. The rumors started filtering through about 3 years into my exile. At first, they were just whispers in the hospital break room. Nurses gossiping about the news, about organized crime making a resurgence in our old city. I trained myself not to react, to sip my coffee and scroll through my phone like their words were just background noise. Then one night, a patient came in with a gunshot wound. Gangland violence, the cops said. The man was delirious with pain, rambling about territory wars and a new family taking over the waterfront. The Viper, he'd gasped, clutching my wrist. He's taking everything. Ruthless bastard. Doesn't negotiate. Doesn't compromise. Just takes. My blood ran cold. But I kept my face professional, finished patching him up, and told myself it was coincidence. The Viper was Mateo's nickname, but it wasn't exactly unique. Plenty of criminals probably called themselves that. Except deep down, I knew. 6 months later, a news article appeared in my social media feed. I tried to avoid news from home, had unfollowed every account that might remind me, but algorithms are persistent. Vitali empire expands. Ruthless new boss consolidates power through force. The photo showed a man in a tailored suit standing outside a downtown high-rise, his face partially obscured by shadow and the angle of the shot. But I'd know that posture anywhere. The way he stood like he owned the ground beneath his feet, the sharp line of his jaw, the cruel elegance of his smile. Mateo. My hands trembled so badly, I dropped my phone. The article detailed his rise. Hostile takeovers of rival operations, strategic eliminations of opposition, expansion into territories that had been neutral for decades. It painted him as brilliant and terrifying in equal measure, a chess master who played with human lives. Sources describe Vitali as cold, calculating, and utterly without mercy. Those who've crossed him rarely get a second chance. I read it 3 times, each pass making my chest tighter. This wasn't the boy who'd held my hand on rooftops. This wasn't even the angry 19-year-old who'd chosen ambition over brotherhood. This was something else entirely, something that had consumed every trace of humanity Mateo once possessed. And Luca? The article mentioned the Romano family only in passing, noting their continued control of port operations and diplomatic approach to territorial disputes. Professional. Controlled. Careful. Still alone. Still fighting a war he never wanted. I started seeing Mateo everywhere after that. Not literally, at least I didn't think so. But in the back of taxis, I'd catch a glimpse of dark hair and sharp shoulders. In crowded restaurants, I'd hear a laugh that sounded too familiar. Walking home from the hospital at night, I'd feel eyes on me, would spin around to find empty streets. Paranoia, probably. Trauma playing tricks. But it kept me looking over my shoulder, kept me checking locks twice, kept me wondering if distance was ever really enough. The loneliness grew teeth. River wasn't enough. Work wasn't enough. The careful, quiet life I'd built felt increasingly like a coffin, safe, contained, and slowly suffocating. Some nights I'd pull up Luca's contact in my phone, the number I'd never deleted despite changing mine, and hover my thumb over the call button. I'd imagine his voice, deeper now, shaped by years of violence and loss. I'd wonder if he ever thought about me, if he missed the girl who used to make him smile, if he blamed me for leaving. I never called. Cowardice, maybe. Or self-preservation. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. The knock came on a Thursday night, so quiet I almost missed it over the rattling heater. 3 soft raps. Polite. Patient. River hissed from the kitchen counter, his fur standing on end. I froze halfway to the bathroom, toothbrush in hand, phone still on my lips. Nobody knocked at my door. The neighbors pounded when they needed something. Delivery drivers called first. And I hadn't ordered anything, hadn't invited anyone, hadn't given this address to a single person from my old life. The knock came again. Same rhythm. Same restrained urgency. My heart hammered as I approached the peephole, every instinct screaming danger. Through the fisheye lens, I saw a man in a dark coat, his face angled down, hands shoved in his pockets. Then he looked up. Dark eyes. Sharp cheekbones. A mouth that used to smile soft but now looked carved from stone. Luca. 5 years older. 5 years harder. Standing at my door like no time had passed at all. Like he'd been searching for me all along. I stood frozen, hand on the deadbolt, breath trapped in my throat. Part of me wanted to open it, to fall into whatever comfort or chaos he'd brought. Part of me wanted to stay silent, to let him think I wasn't home, to preserve the careful distance I'd sacrificed everything to build. River meowed, breaking the spell. Luca's eyes shifted, finding the peephole, finding me, even though he couldn't see through it. Bella, he said softly, his voice exactly as I remembered it. Please. I know you're there. My hand moved before my brain caught up, sliding the deadbolt free. The door opened, and with it, every ghost I'd been running from stepped into my sterile, safe, suffocating little world. He looked older in the lamplight of my apartment. Not just in years, but in the way grief ages people, carving lines around his eyes, adding weight to his shoulders, turning softness into something sharper, but no less careful. Your hands are shaking, Luca said quietly, nodding to where I still clutched the doorknob. I let go, crossed my arms instead. You found me. Did you think I wouldn't? No accusation in his voice. Just fact, delivered gentle as a confession. I've always known where you were, Ella. I just waited until you were ready. I'm not ready. I know. He stepped inside, moving slowly like I was a skittish animal that might bolt. But I need you to be anyway. Things are happening. Matteo is, he stopped, jaw tightening. It's not safe for you to be alone anymore. River hissed from the kitchen counter. Luca glanced at the cat, something almost like amusement flickering across his face. You named him River. The fact that he understood, that he remembered, made my throat tight. He was a stray. You always did collect broken things. His eyes found mine, dark and devastating. Tried to fix them. I never fixed anything, I whispered. I just watched everything break. He stayed that first night on my couch, refusing to leave despite my protests. I gave him a spare blanket that smelled like storage and pretended I didn't spend the entire night awake, hyper-aware of his presence in my small space. In the morning, I found him already awake, making coffee in my kitchen like he'd done it 1,000 times. He'd folded the blanket with military precision and was scrolling through his phone with a frown that meant business. You don't have to do this, I said from the doorway. He looked up, and his expression softened in that way it only ever did for me. Do what? Protect me. Guard me. Whatever this is. I gestured vaguely at him, at the situation. I've been fine for 5 years. Have you? He set down his phone, moved closer. Not touching, but close enough that I could smell his cologne. Expensive, familiar, layered over something darker. Because from where I'm standing, you look like you've been surviving, not living. That's rich coming from someone who spent 5 years building an empire while missing you every single day. His voice dropped, rough with honesty.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the irony. The confession hung between us, heavy and complicated. Luca, I'm not asking you to come back, Bella. I'm not asking you to be part of that world again. He reached out slowly, giving me time to retreat, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I'm just asking you to let me make sure you stay alive. Please. Against every instinct screaming at me to maintain distance, I nodded. He was gentle in ways that undid me. Luca remembered how I took my coffee, too much cream, 2 sugars. Remembered that I couldn't sleep if the apartment was too quiet, so he started leaving his phone playing soft music on the counter. Remembered that I hated mornings, so he'd have breakfast ready without being asked, never commenting when I showed up bleary-eyed and barely functional. Small things. Tiny gestures that proved I'd never really left his thoughts. You still scrunch your nose when you're reading something you don't like, he observed one evening, watching me scroll through patient charts at my kitchen table. I glanced up, caught. I do not. You do. The smile he gave me was soft, real. You've done it since we were kids. Whenever Matteo would suggest something stupid, your nose would scrunch, and I'd know we were about to hear why it was a terrible idea. The mention of Matteo cast a shadow, but Luca pushed through it. I missed that. Missed this. He gestured vaguely at the domestic scene. Me working, him existing in the same space, river curled between us. Missed normal. This isn't normal, I said quietly. You have guards outside my building. Your phone buzzes with encrypted messages every 10 minutes. You disappear for hours and come back with. I stopped, staring at the fresh bruise blooming along his jaw. What happened? His hand moved reflexively to cover it. Business. Luca. It's handled. That's not an answer. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, suddenly looking exhausted. What do you want me to say, Ella? That I got into a fight over territory with one of Matteo's men? That your old friend has been systematically trying to destroy everything I've built? That I spend every day trying to stay 3 steps ahead of someone who used to be my brother? The raw pain in his voice cracked something open in my chest. I moved without thinking, crossing to where he sat, my hand finding his face, fingers gentle on the bruise. He closed his eyes at the touch, leaning into my palm like a man starving for gentleness. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't. His hand covered mine, held it against his cheek. Don't apologize for his choices. Don't apologize for needing to leave. Just stay. Let me keep you safe. That's all I need.
It would have been so easy to kiss him then.
To close the distance and pretend the past 5 years hadn't happened, that we were still just kids who understood each other's silences. Instead, his phone buzzed, harsh and insistent. Luca pulled away, all softness vanishing as he read the message. I have to go.
Now. Now.
He stood, already reaching for his jacket. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. I'll be back in a few hours. Luca. But he was already moving, already transforming from the gentle man who remembered my coffee order into something harder, colder. The Mafia king. At the door, he paused. I meant what I said. Every day. 5 years. I missed you, every single one. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the echo of his confession and the knowledge that I was falling for him all over again. Falling despite knowing it was dangerous, despite knowing he came with violence attached, despite knowing that loving Luca Romano meant accepting the darkness he carried. I stood at the window after he left, watching the street below. His SUV pulled away, taillights disappearing around the corner. The guards he'd stationed shifted positions, their presence both comforting and unnerving. That's when I saw him. Across the street, standing beneath the broken streetlight, a figure in a dark coat. Taller than Luca, broader in the shoulders, with a stillness that radiated danger. He was looking up at my window, face obscured by shadow but posture unmistakable. My blood turned to ice. Matteo! Even from this distance, even through glass and darkness, I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. He didn't move, didn't wave, didn't acknowledge that I'd seen him. Just stood there watching. A predator marking prey. Then, with deliberate slowness, he touched 2 fingers to his forehead in a mock salute, the same gesture he used to give me when we were kids, right before doing something reckless.
And smiled.
By the time I blinked, he was gone. The street empty except for shadows and Luca's guards, who hadn't noticed a thing. I stepped back from the window, heart hammering, river winding anxiously around my ankles. Luca had said I wasn't safe alone anymore. He had no idea how right he was. He showed up at the hospital 3 days later, during my lunch break. I didn't see him at first, was too focused on my wilted salad and the chart I'd been reviewing, until a familiar voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a blade through silk. You always did eat lunch alone. My fork clattered against the plastic container. Matteo stood beside my table, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He'd changed, filled out, sharpened, polished himself into something that belonged in boardrooms and dark alleys in equal measure. His hair was longer, styled with careless precision. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, somehow making him more dangerous rather than less. But his eyes. God, his eyes were the worst part. Still the same color, still framed by those unfairly long lashes, but emptied of everything warm I remembered. Like someone had scooped out his soul and replaced it with calculation. Matteo. His name tasted like ash. You can't be here. Can't I? He pulled out the chair across from me, sat without invitation. It's a public hospital. I'm visiting a friend. The smile he offered was all teeth. Unless you're saying we're not friends anymore, Ella? We haven't been friends in 5 years. Whose fault is that? He leaned back, appraising me with unsettling intensity. You disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. Like what we all had meant nothing. Guilt twisted in my stomach even as anger flared. Don't you dare. You're the one who walked away first. Who chose power over? Over what? Over playing house with Luca while he built his little kingdom? Matteo's voice dropped, venomous. You always took his side. Even when we were kids. Saint Luca, so careful, so controlled. And me? I was just the reckless one. The problem. That's not true. Isn't it? He leaned forward suddenly, invading my space. This close, I could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath, smoke and danger and barely restrained violence. Tell me, has he mentioned what he does now? Your precious Luca? Has he explained where his money comes from, how he keeps his empire running? My throat constricted. I know what he is. Do you? Matteo's laugh was cruel. Do you know about the Ferretti family? The 3 men who tried to muscle in on his port operations last month. He pulled out his phone, slid it across the table. Read. The article detailed a brutal attack. 3 men found beaten nearly to death, dumped at the harbor. Police suspected Romano family involvement, but had no evidence. No witnesses. He's not like you, I whispered, pushing the phone back. Luca doesn't. Doesn't what? Kill? Torture? Destroy lives for territory. Matteo's expression was almost pitying. Bella, your golden boy has more blood on his hands than I do. He's just better at hiding it behind that gentle facade. Behind those soft words and romantic gestures. Stop.
Why?
Because the truth hurts. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine before I could pull away. I'm not here to hurt you, Ella. I'm here to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Luca isn't the boy you remember. None of us are. Then why do you care what I do? Something flickered in his eyes. There and gone, but I caught it. Hurt. Real. Raw hurt buried beneath all that armor. Because you were mine first, he said quietly, and the sudden vulnerability in his voice was more terrifying than any threat. Before Luca looked at you like you were something precious, before all this territory war bullshit, you were mine. We were. He stopped, jaw clenching. We were supposed to be different. Matteo. I made mistakes. I know that. His hand tightened over mine, almost desperate. But I made them trying to survive. trying to be strong enough that no one could hurt us again. And you repaid me by running straight into Luca's arms. I pulled my hand free, heart hammering. That's not what happened. No. He stood abruptly, looming over the table. Then tell me, where is he now? Why isn't he here, making sure I can't get near you? Oh, wait. His smile turned vicious. He's probably cleaning up another mess. Another body. Another territory dispute that required someone to die. You don't know that. I know exactly that. Matteo buttoned his jacket with sharp, angry movements. Your golden boy kills for territory, Ella. For money, for power, for control. And he's wrapped it all up in pretty words and gentle touches, so you can't see the monster underneath. He leaned down, his breath hot against my ear. At least I'm honest about what I am. Then he was gone, striding through the cafeteria like he owned it, leaving me shaking with the ruins of my convictions scattered around me. That night, I confronted Luca the moment he walked through my door. Did you order a hit on the Ferretti family? He froze, hand still on the doorknob. What? 3 men. Beaten. Dumped at the harbor. My voice cracked. Matteo showed me the article. He said you. Understanding and fury warred across Luca's face. He came to see you. Answer the question. Silence. Long and devastating. Luca. Answer me. Yes. The word fell like a guillotine. They came after my people. They threatened my operations. I handled it. My world tilted. You almost killed 3 people over business? I protected what's mine. No apology. No remorse. Just cold, hard fact. That's what this life is, Ella. That's what I do to survive. That's what Matteo said you'd say. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Don't let him twist this. Whatever he told you. Was it a lie? I stepped closer, desperate for him to deny it, to give me something to hold on to. Tell me he lied. Luca's jaw worked. The facts are true. The context is manipulation. That's not good enough. Then what do you want from me? His control finally cracked, voice rising. You want me to apologize for surviving? For protecting what I've built, including you? This is who I am now, Bella. This is the world we live in. Tears burn my eyes. I can't do this. Ella, I need you to leave. The devastation on his face nearly broke me. But he went because even now, even angry and hurt, Luca gave me what I asked for. I locked the door behind him and slid to the floor, river pressing against my side as sobs tore through me. Matteo was right. We weren't those kids by the river anymore. We were monsters in expensive suits, wearing our trauma like armor. And I was the fool who'd convinced herself love could save us. If your heart is breaking for her, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next gut punch. He showed up at the hospital 3 days later, during my lunch break. I didn't see him at first, was too focused on my wilted salad and the chart I'd been reviewing, until a familiar voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a blade through silk. You always did eat lunch alone. My fork clattered against a plastic container. Matteo stood beside my table, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He'd changed, filled out, sharpened, polished himself into something that belonged in boardrooms and dark alleys in equal measure. His hair was longer, styled with careless precision. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, somehow making him more dangerous rather than less. But his eyes. God, his eyes were the worst part. Still the same color, still framed by those unfairly long lashes, but emptied of everything warm I remembered. Like someone had scooped out his soul and replaced it with calculation. Matteo. His name tasted like ash. You can't be here. Can't I? He pulled out the chair across from me, sat without invitation. It's a public hospital. I'm visiting a friend. The smile he offered was all teeth. Unless you're saying we're not friends anymore, Ella? We haven't been friends in 5 years. Whose fault is that? He leaned back, appraising me with unsettling intensity. You disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. Like what we all had, meant nothing. Guilt twisted in my stomach even as anger flared.
Don't you dare.
You're the one who walked away first. Who chose power over? Over what? Over playing house with Luca while he built his little kingdom? Matteo's voice dropped, venomous. You always took his side. Even when we were kids. Saint Luca, so careful, so controlled.
And me?
I was just the reckless one. The problem. That's not true. Isn't it? He leaned forward suddenly, invading my space. This close, I could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath, smoke and danger and barely restrained violence. Tell me, has he mentioned what he does now? Your precious Luca? Has he explained where his money comes from, how he keeps his empire running? My throat constricted. I know what he is. Do you? Matteo's laugh was cruel. Do you know about the Ferretti family? The 3 men who tried to muscle in on his port operations last month. He pulled out his phone, slid it across the table. Read. The article detailed a brutal attack. 3 men found beaten nearly to death, dumped at the harbor. Police suspected Romano family involvement, but had no evidence. No witnesses. He's not like you, I whispered, pushing the phone back. Luca doesn't. Doesn't what? Kill? Torture? Destroy lives for territory. Matteo's expression was almost pitying. Bella, your golden boy has more blood on his hands than I do. He's just better at hiding it behind that gentle facade. Behind those soft words and romantic gestures. Stop.
Why?
Because the truth hurts. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine before I could pull away. I'm not here to hurt you, Ella. I'm here to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Luca isn't the boy you remember. None of us are. Then why do you care what I do? Something flickered in his eyes. There and gone, but I caught it. Hurt. Real, raw hurt buried beneath all that armor. Because you were mine first, he said quietly, and the sudden vulnerability in his voice was more terrifying than any threat. Before Luca looked at you like you were something precious, before all this territory war bullshit, you were mine. We were. He stopped, jaw clenching. We were supposed to be different. Matteo. I made mistakes. I know that. His hand tightened over mine, almost desperate. But I made them trying to survive. Trying to be strong enough that no one could hurt us again. And you repaid me by running straight into Luca's arms. I pulled my hand free, heart hammering. That's not what happened. No. He stood abruptly, looming over the table. Then tell me, where is he now? Why isn't he here, making sure I can't get near you? Oh, wait. His smile turned vicious. He's probably cleaning up another mess. Another body. Another territory dispute that required someone to die. You don't know that. I know exactly that. Matteo buttoned his jacket with sharp, angry movements. Your golden boy kills for territory, Ella. For money, for power, for control. And he's wrapped it all up in pretty words and gentle touches, so you can't see the monster underneath. He leaned down, his breath hot against my ear. At least I'm honest about what I am. Then he was gone, striding through the cafeteria like he owned it, leaving me shaking with the ruins of my convictions scattered around me. That night, I confronted Luca the moment he walked through my door. Did you order a hit on the Ferretti family? He froze, hand still on the doorknob. What? 3 men.
Beaten.
Dumped at the harbor. My voice cracked. Matteo showed me the article. He said you. Understanding and fury warred across Luca's face. He came to see you. Answer the question. Silence. Long and devastating. Luca, answer me. Yes. The word fell like a guillotine. They came after my people. They threatened my operations. I handled it. My world tilted. You almost killed 3 people over business? I protected what's mine. No apology. No remorse. Just cold, hard fact. That's what this life is, Ella. That's what I do to survive. That's what Matteo said you'd say. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Don't let him twist this. Whatever he told you. Was it a lie? I stepped closer, desperate for him to deny it, to give me something to hold on to. Tell me he lied. Luca's jaw worked. The facts are true. The context is manipulation. That's not good enough. Then what do you want from me? His control finally cracked, voice rising. You want me to apologize for surviving? For protecting what I've built, including you? This is who I am now, Bella. This is the world we live in. Tears burned my eyes. I can't do this. Ella, I need you to leave. The devastation on his face nearly broke me. But he went because even now, even angry and hurt, Luca gave me what I asked for. I locked the door behind him and slid to the floor, River pressing against my side as sobs tore through me. Matteo was right. We weren't those kids by the river anymore. We were monsters in expensive suits, wearing our trauma like armor. And I was the fool who'd convinced herself love could save us. I stopped answering Luca's calls after the third day. His texts came in gentle waves, never demanding, never angry. Just please let me explain. And I'm worried about you. And finally, devastatingly, I understand if you need space. I'll be here when you're ready. The problem was, I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the cold certainty in his face when he'd admitted to the violence. I protected what's mine. Like human lives were just pieces on a chessboard, acceptable casualties in his war for territory. But worse than the admission was the part of me that understood. The part that recognized the logic, the necessity, the survival of it all. That terrified me most. Not what Luca had become, but what I might become if I stayed. At work, I moved through rotations like a ghost. My supervisor pulled me aside twice, concerned about my distraction. I blamed insomnia, stress, anything but the truth, that I was unraveling, thread by thread, caught between two men who'd once been everything and now represented every nightmare I'd tried to escape. Luca showed up at my door on day 6. I knew it was him before I even checked the peephole, knew by the soft, familiar knock, by River's immediate calm instead of his usual hissing. My cat had always been a better judge of character than me. Ella. His voice through the door was rough, exhausted. I know you're there. I can hear you breathing. My hand pressed against the wood, separated from him by inches and miles simultaneously.
Please, just let me see you.
Let me explain. I don't want explanations. My voice cracked. I want you to be someone different. Someone who doesn't solve problems with violence. Silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. I can't be that person anymore, Bella. But I can be honest with you. That has to count for something. Does it? I lean my forehead against the door. Matteo is honest too. He told me exactly what you are. Matteo is using you. Steel crept into Luca's tone. He's not protecting you or enlightening you. He's breaking down your defenses so he stopped, and I heard him take a shaky breath. I know what I am. I know what I've done. But I've never lied to you about loving you. Not once. Not ever. The confession hit like a physical blow. Luca, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you not to let him convince you that what we have isn't real. A pause. I'll go. But please, please be careful. He's escalating, and I can't protect you if you won't let me near you. I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway, heard the stairwell door close with devastating finality. Only then did I open my door, staring at the empty corridor, at the space where he'd stood bleeding quiet pain. On my doormat, a single white rose, his calling card since we were teenagers. No note needed. Matteo's gifts started arriving the next day. First, an expensive bottle of wine with a card, to the girl who deserves better than scraps from a guilty conscience. Then flowers. Red roses, dozens of them, delivered to the hospital with a note that made my coworkers whisper, I remember how you used to hate red roses. Said they were too dramatic.
I always loved that about you.
A bracelet arrived on day 3. Delicate, silver, clearly expensive. The card read, You wore your mother's bracelet every day after she died. I noticed when you stopped. This isn't a replacement. Just a reminder that someone still notices everything.
M.
Each gift felt like surveillance disguised as affection. Like he was cataloging my life, my habits, my vulnerabilities, and turning them into tokens of obsession. I threw the wine away, left the flowers in the break room, locked the bracelet in my desk drawer because I couldn't bring myself to throw away something so clearly meant to prove he'd been watching. The surveillance became impossible to ignore. A black sedan idling outside my apartment building. The same man in a leather jacket, coincidentally, at my coffee shop 3 mornings in a row. Text messages from unknown numbers with photos of me walking to work, always captioned with, "Luca's protection doesn't seem very thorough."
M.
I started looking over my shoulder constantly, taking different routes, varying my schedule. But Mateo's presence felt inescapable, a shadow I couldn't shake, a predator tracking prey with patient precision. Then, during a night shift, I caught sight of another figure outside the hospital. Taller, broader shoulders, standing beneath a streetlight smoking a cigarette.
Luca.
Not approaching, not interfering, just there. Watching. Waiting. When our eyes met through the glass, he didn't wave or smile. Just nodded once. Acknowledgement, reassurance, quiet protection from a distance, and disappeared into the shadows. It hit me then, standing in the fluorescent hospital corridor at 2 a.m. Both of them were circling. Luca kept his distance, respecting my boundaries while maintaining watch like a guardian I'd never asked for but couldn't fully reject. His protection was passive, patient, painful in its restraint. Mateo closed in incrementally, each gift and message and surveillance photo a tightening noose. His attention was active, aggressive, suffocating in its intensity. One man waiting for permission. One man taking without asking. Both convinced they were protecting me. Both convinced they had a claim on my heart, my future, my survival.
And me?
I was trapped between them, between the boy who became a killer to keep me safe and the boy who became a monster to make me his. The worst part wasn't choosing between them. It was realizing I'd already lost both of them the night our fathers died. These weren't Luca and Mateo anymore. They were ghosts wearing familiar faces, playing out some twisted tragedy where I was both prize and casualty. I slid down the wall, pulling my knees to my chest, and let the loneliness swallow me whole.
River couldn't protect me from this. Distance couldn't save me.
And love, God. Love was the thing that would destroy me because despite everything, despite the violence and manipulation and surveillance and blood, part of me still loved them both. Still loved the boys by the river who'd promised we'd always be together. Even knowing that promise had become a curse. My phone buzzed. 2 messages, seconds apart. Luca, I'm here if you need me. Always. Unknown. He can't give you what I can. Come home, little bird. Before I have to bring you home myself.
M.
I stared at both messages, hands trembling. One was a plea. One was a threat. And I had no idea which terrified me more. I called Luca at 3 a.m. when the walls felt too close and Mateo's last message still burned on my screen. You have 48 hours to come home willingly. After that, I stopped asking nicely. He answered on the first ring, voice rough with sleep or worry, impossible to tell which. Ella, I need the truth. My voice shook. All of it. No more half answers. No more protection from the ugly parts. If you want me to trust you, I need to know exactly what I'm trusting. Silence stretched long enough that I thought he might refuse. My apartment, he finally said. Not over the phone. Not with, he stopped. I'll send a car. 20 minutes. Luca. Please, Bella. Let me do this right. His apartment was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd expected ostentation. Marble and gold. The kind of wealth that screamed power. Instead, I found understated elegance. Dark wood floors, minimalist furniture, walls lined with books. It looked like a sanctuary, not a criminal's lair. Luca stood by the window, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking more exhausted than I'd ever seen him. When he turned, his eyes held something raw and unguarded. Coffee, he offered quietly. Truth first. He nodded, gestured to the couch. We sat with careful distance between us, close enough to talk, far enough to maintain the fragile peace. Where do you want me to start? The Ferretti family, I said. Tell me what really happened. Luca's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. They came after one of my people. A kid, barely 20, who worked at the docks. They beat him so badly, he's still in ICU. His hands clenched. It was a message that my territory was weak, that I couldn't protect my own. If I'd done nothing, it would have been open season. More attacks, more violence, until everything my father built collapsed. So you had them beaten? Yes. No hesitation. I made sure they understood that touching my people has consequences. I didn't kill them, Ella. I could have. Others would have. But I drew a line. A line, I repeated hollowly. That's what you call mercy? Beating people until they're hospitalized. In this world? Yes. His voice dropped. You want the truth? Here it is. I've hurt people. I've threatened people. I've made choices that keep me awake at night, that make me hate the face in the mirror some mornings. But every single one was calculated. Every act of violence had a purpose. Protection, deterrence, survival. That doesn't make it right.
No.
It doesn't. He turned to face me fully, and the vulnerability in his expression nearly broke me. I'm not asking you to think I'm a good man, Bella. I'm asking you to understand that I'm a man trying to be good in a world that punishes goodness. Tears burned behind my eyes. When did it stop feeling wrong? The question hit him like a physical blow. He looked down at his hands, those gentle, careful hands that had touched me with such softness, and I saw them tremble. It didn't, he whispered. That's the difference between Matteo and me. It never stopped feeling wrong. Every order I give, every line I cross, every time I become the thing I swore I'd never be, it tears me apart. But I do it anyway because the alternative is worse. What alternative? Losing everything. His eyes found mine, dark and devastating. Losing my family's legacy. Losing my people. Losing. He stopped, swallowed hard. Losing you because I wasn't strong enough to keep you safe. Luca. I became a monster to survive. His voice cracked, years of suppressed emotion bleeding through. But I never stopped trying to be human for you. Every night, when I'm alone with the choices I've made, you're the reason I don't completely lose myself. You're the reminder that somewhere, beneath all this blood and power and violence, the boy by the river still exists. The confession hung between us, raw and honest and heartbreaking. Matteo would tell you the violence is necessary and feel nothing. Luca continued, quieter now. I tell you it's necessary and feel everything. That's the difference. That's why I'm begging you not to let him twist your understanding of what we are. I reached for him without thinking, my hand finding his face, feeling the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion in his bones. Show me something, I whispered. Show me the boy by the river. Prove he's still in there. Luca leaned into my touch, eyes closing. What if he's not? Then we'll find him together. The window exploded inward with a deafening crash. Glass rained down as Luca threw himself over me, his body shielding mine as gunshots tore through the apartment. Wood splintered. Books exploded. The lamp shattered, plunging us into darkness, lit only by muzzle flashes from outside. Stay down. Luca's voice was all command now, the vulnerable man gone, replaced by the warrior. He pulled a gun from beneath the couch. Of course, he had weapons hidden everywhere, and returned fire with cold precision. The shooting stopped as abruptly as it started. In the ringing silence, my phone buzzed. A text message, glowing obscene in the darkness. Unknown. That was a warning. Next time, I won't miss. Come home, Ella. Before Luca gets you killed trying to play hero. Luca pulled me up, checking me for injuries with shaking hands. Are you hurt? Bella, look at me. Are you hurt? No, My voice wouldn't work properly. He tried to kill us.
No.
Luca's expression was grim. He tried to scare you. If Matteo wanted us dead, we'd be dead. He looked at the shattered window, jaw clenched with barely contained fury. This is just the beginning. He's escalating.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, a photo. Me and Luca on the couch, taken through the window before it shattered. Taken while we'd been confessing, vulnerable, exposed. The caption. I've been patient.
I've been kind.
But you're running out of time to make the right choice. 24 hours, little bird. Then I come for you myself. Luca read the message over my shoulder, and for the first time, I heard genuine fear in his voice. He's coming for you, he whispered. And I don't know if I can stop him. Matteo didn't wait 24 hours. He came for me at dawn, when Luca had finally fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from standing guard all night, gun within reach, dark circles carving shadows beneath his eyes. I'd been watching him sleep, memorizing the rare peace on his face, when the knock came. 3 sharp raps. Familiar. Deliberate. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Matteo stood in the hallway, flanked by 2 men in dark suits, looking like violence wrapped in expensive tailoring. His eyes found mine, and something in them made my blood run cold. Not anger, but certainty. The look of a man who'd already won. Hello, little bird. His voice was soft, almost gentle. We need to talk. Ella, don't. Luca's voice came from behind me, rough with sleep and alarm. But Matteo's hand was already on my wrist, grip firm, but not painful. She'll come willingly. Won't you, Ella? Because you know what happens if you don't. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo.
My apartment building.
My neighbor's doors. Children playing in the courtyard. The message was clear. Cooperate or they suffer. Let her go, Matteo. Luca appeared beside me, gun drawn but lowered. His face was a mask of controlled fury. This is between us. Leave her out of it. Leave her out of it? Matteo laughed, bitter and sharp. She's always been in it. Since we were kids, since the river, since the night you decided she was yours to protect. His grip on my wrist tightened fractionally. But she was never yours, brother. You just convinced her she was. Don't call me that, Luca said quietly, dangerously. You lost that right when you chose ambition over family. Family? Matteo's voice cracked. You want to talk about family? You, who built an empire on our fathers' graves, who turned their deaths into opportunity. At least I'm honest about what I want. Power, control, her. He pulled me closer. You hide behind honor and protection, but we both know the truth. You're just as much a monster as I am. You're just better at pretending. The confrontation moved to neutral ground, the old warehouse where our fathers died. Matteo insisted. Some twisted sense of poetry, bringing us full circle to where everything began. His men positioned themselves strategically, blocking exits, ensuring this ended on his terms. Luca came alone, against every tactical instinct, because Matteo had made it clear, just the 3 of us, or everyone dies. We stood in the same room where blood had pooled years ago, ghosts watching from shadows. Do you remember, Matteo said, his voice echoing off concrete, what we promised that summer? Before everything went to hell? He looked between us, something almost vulnerable flickering across his face. We said nothing would ever come between us. That we were stronger than blood, stronger than business. We were children, Luca said. Children who didn't understand what their fathers were building.
No.
Matteo's expression hardened. We were family, real family. And then you took her side, you took the moral high ground, you turned me into the villain of our story. He grabbed my arm, pulled me forward.
So, here's how this ends.
She chooses. Right here, right now.
Me or you.
The boy who wants her enough to burn the world down, or the boy who wants her enough to pretend he's still good. That's not a choice, I whispered. That's a cage. Everything's a cage, Ella. Matteo's eyes met mine, and I saw it. The pain beneath the cruelty, the abandoned boy beneath the mafia king. At least with me, you know what you're getting. No illusions. No pretending. Just raw, honest want. Luca stepped forward, hands raised, voice steady despite the chaos. You think this is about her choosing between us? It's not. It's about you finally facing what you've become, what you've done to yourself, to us, trying to fill the hole our fathers left. Don't psychoanalyze me. You're not angry at me for protecting her, Luca continued, each word precise, devastating. You're angry at yourself for becoming exactly what you swore you'd never be. Our fathers destroyed each other over pride and territory. And here you are, repeating their mistakes, using the girl we both love as a weapon. The truth hit Matteo like a physical blow. His grip on my arm loosened. You don't get to do that, he said, voice shaking. You don't get to make this about me being broken when you're just as fucked up. I know I am. Luca's voice cracked. I know exactly what I've become, what I've sacrificed, what I've lost. But the difference between us, Matteo? I'm trying to be better. You're trying to be bulletproof. Silence fell, heavy with years of unspoken pain. I stepped between them, hands shaking, heart breaking. This isn't about choosing between you. This is about choosing myself. I looked at Matteo, saw the desperation beneath his armor. I can't save you from what you've become. I can't fix the part of you that our fathers' deaths destroyed. Then to Luca, saw the quiet devastation in his eyes. And I can't be a reason to stay human. You have to want that for yourself. Ella, they said simultaneously. The gunshot shattered the moment. Not from Matteo's men. From outside. A sniper shot that missed Luca by inches, concrete exploding where his head had been. Someone had followed us. Someone wanted all three of us dead. Chaos erupted. Matteo's men returned fire. Luca grabbed me, pulling me behind cover as bullets tore through the warehouse. And Matteo threw himself in front of us, taking a round in the shoulder meant for me. He went down hard, blood blooming dark against his white shirt. No! The scream tore from my throat as I lunged for him, Luca's arms barely catching me. Matteo! He looked up at me, face pale with shock and pain, and smiled, small, sad, achingly familiar. The smile of the boy I'd loved before the world broke him. Still trying to save me, he whispered. Even now. Then his eyes rolled back, and everything went dark. Matteo survived. The bullet had missed anything vital, and Luca's men got him to a private hospital before blood loss could finish what the sniper started. He woke 3 days later, groggy and furious, handcuffed to the hospital bed with federal agents standing guard. The sniper had been one of his own, a lieutenant who'd grown tired of Matteo's obsessive focus on me, who saw opportunity in eliminating all three of us and seizing control. Matteo's empire had fractured the moment he'd shown weakness. The moment he'd taken a bullet for someone else. Ironic, he'd said when I visited, his voice rough from intubation. I spent years becoming invincible, and the second I felt something human, it destroyed me. You saved my life, I whispered. Yeah. He looked away, jaw tight. Don't make it mean more than it does. Old habits. Muscle memory from when we were kids. But his eyes betrayed him, still haunted, still hungry, still devastatingly lost. The federal prosecutors had enough evidence to put him away for decades. Wire fraud, racketeering, conspiracy. They'd been building a case for years, and Matteo's distraction over me had made him sloppy. Made him vulnerable. I don't regret it, he said when they led him away in chains. His eyes found mine one last time. Becoming the monster, building the empire, all of it. I'd do it again. But you. His voice cracked. I regret not being someone you could love. I watched them take him, this boy who'd become a king, who'd become a prisoner, and felt something break and heal simultaneously in my chest. He'd made his choice years ago. Now I had to make mine. I found Luca on the roof of his building, same place we used to go as teenagers when the world felt too heavy. He stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, silhouette sharp against the dawn sky. When he heard my footsteps, he didn't turn. You came to say goodbye, he said quietly. Not a question. No. I moved beside him, close enough to touch. I came to say I'm staying. He turned then, disbelief and hope warring across his face. Ella. Not because you're perfect. Not because this life isn't terrifying. I took his hand, laced our fingers together. But because you fight your darkness. Because you wake up every day and try to be better than what this world made you. And my voice caught. I want to fight beside you. Build something new from all this wreckage. Luca's control finally shattered. He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair, and trembled. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I held him tighter. But you're stuck with me anyway. 6 months later, we stood by the river. The willow tree had grown taller, its branches sweeping the water's surface like fingers searching for something lost. I'd brought the photograph, 3 kids laughing in the summer sun, frozen in a moment before tragedy. Luca stood beside me, his hand warm in mine, watching the current. Do you think he'll get out? I asked. Eventually. Matteo? Luca considered. Maybe.
Probably.
Men like him always find a way. He squeezed my hand, but he won't be the same person.
Prison changes people.
Maybe it'll give him the space to figure out who he is without the empire, without the anger. Do you miss him? The boy he was? Every day. The admission was soft, honest. But missing him doesn't mean I can save him. Some people have to save themselves. I leaned into his shoulder, felt the steady strength of him. Luca had started dismantling the more violent aspects of his business, transitioning to legitimate operations. It would take years, maybe decades, but he was trying. Fighting the legacy his father left, building something cleaner. We weren't fixed, weren't whole. Both of us carried scars that would never fully heal. But we were here.
Together.
Choosing each day to step toward light instead of shadow. I used to think this place held all our ghosts, I said, staring at the river. That coming back would only bring pain. And now I think it holds who we were before everything broke. I turned to face him, saw the boy I'd loved in the man he'd become. And maybe that's not a bad thing to remember. As long as we don't try to live there. Luca cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. Where do we live, then? I smiled, standing on my toes to kiss him. Soft, hopeful, real.
Here. Now.
In whatever future we build together. The photograph slipped from my fingers, caught by the breeze, and drifted toward the water. I watched it float downstream, 3 kids laughing toward an ending I couldn't change. But I could choose what came next. I could choose love over fear. Growth over stagnation. A future not shaped by the past, but by the light we chose to follow. Luca's arms wrapped around me, solid and sure, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd thought was lost forever.
Hope.
In a federal prison 300 miles away, Matteo sat in his cell, staring at a photograph smuggled in by a guard who owed him favors. 3 kids by a river. Laughing. Whole. He traced a finger over Ella's face, then crumpled the photo slowly, letting it fall to the floor. Some stories don't get happy endings, but they do get second chances. And Matteo Vitali had never been good at accepting defeat. Not yet, little bird, he whispered to the empty cell. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The end. Or is it? Listen, I need you to be honest with me for a second. Because here's the thing, this might be the end of their story, but is it really? Matteo's in prison, plotting. Luca and Ella are building something fragile and beautiful. And you're telling me you don't want to know what happens when those worlds collide again? So here's what you're going to do. Please hit subscribe, leave a comment telling me what you think happens next. The real question is, are you Team Luca or Team Matteo? Drop your answer below. Defend your choice. See you in part 2.